Hi, welcome back everyone. Thanks for joining me for this fourth and final installment of the making of a Rooikat bow. I hope you enjoyed the previous videos. In this one we'll be finishing off the limbs, shaping them, tillering them, putting on the limb tips, and then doing the final finish of the bow. I hope you enjoy the video, I hope you learned something, and let me know what you guys think. Cheers.
Okay. So now we have our cleaned up limbs. I've cleaned off all the excess glue. And the next part would be to first find the center of the limbs. So I'll draw a line down the center, and then I'll be using the template that I've made for myself to cut out this shape of the limb. I'm not going to be showing you the part where I find the center, as I use a laser level to actually draw that center in, and I only have one tripod which is mounting the camera at the moment. But I'll be back to show you how I actually cut the basic shape using the template. So the next part of my process is I have actually marked out the center by using a laser level and putting it on a level surface, and then drawing out the center of the limb. And now I'm going to draw the center line. And once I've drawn that in, I'll use my template. This is the template I've made myself, also out of a piece of glass, so that it's nice and bendy but still strong. Now once I've done that, I'll put my template onto the limb. And now I'll proceed to use a carpet knife to cut the tape so that I can get the shape of the template transferred. And there we go. Now it's simply a matter of removing everything that doesn't have tape on it, and I'll have my basic limb shape. Now repeat the process with the other limb. Okay, so I've repeated the process on the other limb, and now we've got both our limbs marked out. I will now proceed to cut away what is not part of the limb, or what is not covered in duct tape. Okay, so both of our limbs have now been shaped, and I've sanded them down so that my jig for cutting the limb bolt holes fits nice and snug on the limbs. And the next step will be to take the riser and to tap the holes that we drilled before, so that we can screw in my my locking system. Repeat the process for the other side. You'll notice that when tapping, I turn 2 turns forward and then a half turn back, and that just ensures that whatever material has clogged up in the cutting grooves just dislodges when you go that half turn back, and then you don't get the it kept getting stuck in the middle of the work. So once the holes are tapped, I proceed to screw in the my locking lugs. That's the first side done. For now I just screw them in. At a later stage I will glue them into position so that they don't move. And there we go, our locking lugs are in position. The next step will be to drill the holes in the limbs so that they can actually slide over these and then lock into position with screws. So again, I use the same jig that I used to drill the holes in the riser. So now I'm just going to make a mark where the holes are to be drilled. I don't actually drill through with the 10mm drill because the holes need to be 12mm. Usually works better when it's plugged in. So there's my marks, and I'll be drilling them through with a 12mm wooden drill bit. There's the second one done. I'll be drilling the holes through now, and then I'll see you again soon. Okay, so the holes are drilled in the limbs. I've already fitted that one, and I will fit the second one. Put our brass lugs in place. And there we go. Now it's starting to look like a bow. So the next step will be to cut the pilot grooves in the limbs, and to put it on the tillering rack and see how we did with poundage. So I use my rotary tool with an aggressive bit in it to just cut the pilot string grooves. I use a small round file to just clean out the edges of those string grooves that I cut in, just so they don't cut my tillering string. Then what I also do is I just take the edge off the fiberglass before I put the string on, otherwise it would also cut my tillering string. And now we'll be putting the tillering string on it to see how it shapes, and then also specifically we'll put it on the scale to see if we reach the right poundage. I always recommend that you, when stringing your bow, whenever you're stringing your bow, to use your stringer. As I know there's many ways of getting a string onto a bow, but this is just one of the safest and the least damaging to your bow. When you do the over the leg string or stringing method, you tend to put torque on one side of the bow, and this in long run would cause a bit of damage, and it's always better to just use a stringer. So there we go. Make sure the strings align nicely. And it does not seem to be too bad. If I feel the poundage, we might be a little bit above the 40 pounds we were aiming for. So we'll be tillering a bit to get it down to exactly 40. Let's see, here goes. Okay, so I've had it on the scale now, and it's drawing at about 44.5 pounds at 28. So I'll be chamfering the edges a little bit to take down some poundage, and that would leave us at about 42 or so. And then once I do the final sanding, we should be sitting nicely on 40 pounds, which was the weight we were aiming for. Okay, so I'll be doing that now. So for this tillering process, I use a very fine grit, 180 grit, to grind the fiberglass, so that I don't take too much off at a time. Obviously, if you use a more aggressive grit sandpaper, it would cause damage to the glass. So I'm taking very little off at a time until I get to my required poundage, and also make sure that I keep it even so that the tillering stays correct. Okay, so the next step will be to glue in the limb top straps as well as the tips. I've prepared the limbs so long. I've taken them down to 41.5 pounds at 28 inches. So once I do the final sanding, it should come nicely to 40 pounds at 28 inches. So important when you're gluing on your top straps that you rough up the fiberglass, as if it's still smooth, the EA40 glue doesn't grip properly and you might have a separation on them. So I rough them up using my belt sander, just running them up and down the belt sander on the curved edge. And then of course the next step is to clean them properly with acetone before I do the glue up. Also with the top straps, I've prepared them already, so I sand them down to the right thickness, and then what I do is I taper the front end of the top strap as well as the front end of the tips, so that they join nice and flush against the glass. That just takes some of that nerve-wracking work of shaping the tips and the top straps out of the equation, because they're already shaped thinner towards the limb. So once it's glued in, it's easier to just give it that final edge. So I've already prepared my EA40. Again, in this case I used 5 mils of each, and that should be sufficient to glue the two limbs, top straps, as well as their tips. Okay, so now I'm just going to be cleaning it, and then we'll take it from there. That's that second one done and ready to go into the oven. So the limbs are out of the oven. I've cleaned them up, re-drilled the holes where the limb bolts will go through, and then I've also prepared them for the next step, which is to glue in this string groove overlay as well as the seating overlay on the limbs. Again, each part I've covered the bottom with some tape just to prevent glue from going on there, and that's just something you'll have to remove again later. I also prepared myself these little wedges, basically a jig that I use to glue on the string groove overlays. So everything is cleaned up. I've cleaned it up with the acetone. I've mixed 2.5 mils of activator as well with 2.5 mils of the EA40 glue, and now I'll be gluing it into position and then it can go back in the oven. Again, when you prepare your workpiece where you're going to be gluing the wood onto the glass, it's important that you scour the glass so that it's got a rough surface, so that your glue has a proper point of adherence and can adhere to the glass properly. Again, put the adhesive on both sides of the workpiece. And even though you don't want to waste any glue, it's safer to have more glue rather than less, so that the excess will just squeeze out. But if you put too little, you might get a separation at a later stage. So I've covered the little jigs with the normal packaging plastic, just to prevent the glue from going in and sitting on my little wedges. And now I'm just going to repeat the process for the other limb. I won't be filming this as it's just a repetitive process. Okay, so we're back. Both limbs now have their string groove overlays glued into place, and I did the basic shaping of the nocks and the tips so long. I also recut the guide groove that I cut into the tip, and I've also re-drilled the holes into the limb bed overlays. So next I will be shaping the limb overlays or the bolt overlays as well as the tips, and I'm not going to show every little piece of the process because it would require me moving the camera all the time. But basically I'm just going to use my bench grinder, bench sander, to do the basic shaping, and then after that I'll be using hand tools and also my baby grinder with a flat disc to shape the rest of the limb overlays. So I've done the basic shaping on the limb bolt overlays, and now I'll be using the sander and the baby grinder intermittently to finish it up. Yeah, there you can see the knock is starting to take shape nicely. I don't know if you're able to see the string groove in there. Now it's just some final sanding on this one, and then we should be done. And then this one I'll start with the tips again. Just with a bit of sanding sealer, you should be able to see the string groove nicely now. So I've done the final sanding on the limbs, done the final sanding on the limb tips, the limb overlays, and now the next step is to actually put my emblem, my little medallion with EBC bows, and then I also have a Bible text on that little emblem that says Genesis 27 verse 3 and 4, which is actually the text where Isaac tells Esau to go out into the veldt, take his bow and his quiver and go hunt him some game, and then prepare him a meal and bring it back, prepare him a meal so that he can bless him. And it ended up that Jacob actually stole that blessing. But I think it's important that we realize that I've heard the text, verse 27 verse 3, saying, take your bow and your quiver, go out into the veldt and hunt me some game. I've heard that a lot, but a lot of people leave out the last part about the blessing, which is actually the important part of this verse, is that Isaac wanted to bestow a blessing on him, and God even honored Jacob's blessing because Isaac had bestowed it on him, and he was blessed, as it's quite clear in Genesis in the Bible. Okay, so the next part will be to glue in this little emblem, and then I'm going to write the name of the bow, the Rooikat, as well as the client Heidi's name on the bow, and then I'll be ready to put the first coat of the polyurethane sealer onto the bow. I'm not going to show you every little part again. I don't want to get my phone full of overspray, so I'll just be taking some videos after I've done the spraying to show you what it looks like once the colors start to come out due to the finish. Okay, so the first coat of polyurethane has gone on. See if I can turn it a bit. See how that rich color comes out of the panga. And then you can clearly see those lines of the curly maple on the limb wedges. Tips, string groove, and then the other one's just the same. So typically I would put between 2 and 3 layers of polyurethane on to ensure that the bow can be used in any weather conditions, and we won't have any penetration of water should you want to use it in the snow or in the light rain. So 3 coats of polyurethane finish later. This is what we have, the finished Rooikat. I've gone ahead and I've glued in the little limb bolt washers, brass washers, and now the only thing left is to put on the leather arrow rests, and then I will be building the string. I usually build endless loop strings. I don't know why, but I prefer them, and I'm not going to show every step of building the string. I might make a video later of how to make an endless loop string, but yeah, after this I'll take photographs and then it'll be ready to go to the client, and I'm sure she's going to enjoy it thoroughly. Thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you again soon.
Well, that is it, guys. Thank you for joining me for this making of a Rooikat bow by EBC Bows. I hope you enjoyed the videos. To give you an idea of the actual time it takes to build a bow, the time lapses on my videos are actually 16 times faster than the original time it took to make the bow. So that just gives you an idea of the amount of hours that go into producing a handcrafted bow. So next time you wonder why bows are so expensive, that's the reason why. It takes a lot of time and a lot of love to build a bow. For the aspiring bowers out there, I hope you guys learned something. I hope you you don't make the same mistakes I made. Just for interest's sake, I mentioned at the beginning of the video of part 1 that this was the 96 bow that I've made, and I'm actually, in all the time that it's taken me to edit these videos, I am now busy building number 100. So that is a centennial mark for me, which I'm quite proud of. And I've had an absolute honor in for the last 5 years living out my passion and doing what I really love. So if you guys have any questions, the contact details will be scrolling across the screen just now. Feel free to contact us any time. If you want to order an EBC bow, please contact me on those contact details, and we'll get you into position to acquire a bow from us. Enjoy the rest of the time, guys, and look forward to seeing you in my future videos.